Welcome back to In Their Own Words. I'm your host, Kimon Kotos, and I'm here with David Walks' Bear. And we're talking about his work as an author and his work as a game warden and naturalist here in the Michigan area. Now, David, we were talking a little bit about your book series, the Eli Stone character, and your experiences overall in general. Can you tell us a little bit about how you develop a character, or what leads your character through his journey?
Okay, well, with Eli Stone, because of the very first book, the first book is called The Murmurings, c'est quoi, which means the murmurings of the trees. And what it is, the pine needles or the leaves that rustle, it's how the great good spirit blows through things, and it's just the sound that's made. Well, he hears these sounds or whatever. The character I developed from a lot of it's me, a lot of it's other people that I've known over the years, just like it is with any other writer, I think. But he basically is a member of the Pukasqua Indian Reservation, or Indian Nation, Black River Band, up in Michigan's Upper Peninsula. And what's going on is that he's considered a pathfinder, a way leader. And so this is all new for him. He spent 21, or not 21, that's me. Like you said, you write what you know. So he spent 20 years in the Coast Guard as a Coast Guard intelligence agent. And so he comes back to Michigan and with a newly federally recognized tribe, and gets involved in that and becomes hired as a special agent. So he's always working for the band in that sense. And then he gets involved in situations that are dealing with his job. In reference to that, his history comes back to haunt him, things that he's done in the past or whatever. In Whitaku, he's scared to death of witches, which is what the Whitaku is, but he has to deal with that because that's his job, and so he does deal with it. And I guess that's really what this series of books is about, as compared to anyone else's. And most of the time, that's what authors are writing about. They're writing a series. It's their character, who they've developed, and then their character getting involved in various situations, one way or the other.
So David, in your first book, The Murmurings, you mentioned what that was about, but let's talk about some of the other books. The second book takes place in Hawaii. Can you tell me what that led to, or the mystery behind that?
Yeah, that's based on a true Civil War mystery. It has to do with the CSS Shenandoah. I don't know if you ever heard of that before or not. She was a Confederate raider, and the thing about the first book that I thought was interesting, and I'd put it out there for the readers, is that the way that mystery was actually solved, the true mystery, the one that I talked about with the missing F-89 fighter jet, this happened within Murmurings. This happened right during the Cold War, the very beginning of the Cold War, and because of the way that incident transpired, it changed the way that America and NATO fought the Cold War. And I thought that was fascinating, and so I carried that same thought through with Old Money when I wrote that book. At the time, I was living in Hawaii. We were going back and forth, my family and I. And so I set the character up. The protagonist is over there, and he's staying in the banana house. That's our house. And it's based on an old mystery having to do with a Confederate, or not a Confederate, but a supposedly registered Sandwich Islands, which is what Hawaii was called before it was called Hawaii. A registered whaler that was actually in cahoots in flying incognito as a Union whaler. Well, the Confederate raider CSS Shenandoah, and a raider is basically is kind of like the forerunner of a U-boat. I mean, their job was to destroy commerce, and the CSS Shenandoah, her one mission for the Confederacy was to go out and sink every northern whaler she possibly could, because at this point in time, everybody lived their night by whale oil. Everybody did, in the whole world. And one of the largest producers of whale oil was the United States, and that was from the Yankee whalers. So what the Shenandoah did was she destroyed all those whalers, which actually changed the way that the world lived their night. So that's kind of the little truism that I have going on in the series, I guess. We'll see how that plays out with Whitaku, but in essence, that's something that I'm doing with them that might be a little bit different.
Well, that's very interesting. And so I'll follow along. You have, is it 4 or 5 books now along this series?
In this series, I've only got 3. I'm writing the 4th one right now.
Oh, okay. And so Whitaku is again due to come out in beginning
May
of May?
1st, yeah, May 1st. It'll be out officially May 1st.
So tell me a little bit about how the characters, not only the characters develop, but some of the things that they intrinsically use as guides. You mentioned the wind the Great Spirit talking through the wind. How is that true for what you learned in your work as a game warden, or even your work in the Coast Guard in terms of people being able to listen and be able to still themselves enough to be able to understand the guidance from nature or from the Great Spirit.
Yeah. Well, obviously, anybody that knows me probably is going to see an awful lot of me and Eli Stone. I think that's true of anybody who's writing a series. So, not necessarily everyone, but that's the way that it is with me. So, I pray every morning, and I always have. It doesn't change. It's perhaps just an Indian thing. I don't know, but it doesn't matter what the weather's like. It doesn't matter where I'm at. It doesn't matter what I'm doing. That's what I do every morning. For me, it's being at one with the outdoors is as important as drawing breath itself. You really can't. I really can't anyway. Be any other way. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, absolutely.
Well, it's one of the reasons why Indians had such a terrible time when they were taken. Because let me back up. I get into my elder stuff now, but what I'm trying to say, I guess, is that one of the reasons why reservations were so poor, and many of them still are, is that people don't understand that as much for an American Indian. The outdoors is as much for an American Indian as, say, a good Catholic, church is to him or her, or a good Jews, synagogue is to them. These are important elements to us. It's what we do. It's where we find the great mystery. It's where the Master of Life exists for us. So when these things were taken away, it'd be no different than you losing your religion or some other person losing theirs. So a two-legged has to have a connection to the great mystery. You have to have. So I get carried away with that, but you'll find an awful lot of that in my stories because that's how it fits for me.
Well, and I'm looking a little bit to help me understand, as well as those who are viewing this, what guides you, what motivates you, and what's that constant force in you. And if it's a reverence for God and a reverence for nature, those are very important things that we've seemed to have gotten out of touch with in our development of civilization.
I totally agree with you, but they're one and the same. The God and the nature, they're one and the same. You wouldn't exist, I wouldn't exist without him. So how those things all interconnect are very important, and you're absolutely right. We have gotten away from it. There's always a right and a wrong to every situation. Folks give too much gray, so I don't put any of the gray in my books. You're going to see a black and white, an up and a down. There's a left and a right to every situation, and an up and a down to every situation. So, and it basically is as complicated as you want to make it in life, or at least that's how I see it anyway. So, it's very important for me as an individual to be in a zone or in a place where I can connect. Now, and I can connect, and I've done it many times in a big city like LA, or in a big city like New York. I've done it many times and had to because I was stationed there, I was there for a conference, or I was there for some other reason. But we have gotten away from that as a people, and you don't have to congregate. You don't have to have a church in order to do this. You just have to be at one with the Master of Life. I'm not sure if I'm answering your question.
I totally understand that.
Okay, so.
Well, I think that's important for people to understand and reflect on, because we may look at you as an author or a game warden or just a human being, but what gives you guidance, and what is coming forth through your life experience, and
yes.
So I want to give respect to that. I kind of want to maybe give some advice to future authors in terms of what motivates you or how you capture that. But we'll go back into that when we come back after this break.
Sounds good.
Please stay with us. I'm here with David Walks' Beer.